Hello and welcome to another episode of Think Out Loud. Today I am sat in my little study office at home, working from home today. It's a Tuesday, although it feels like it should be Friday already. I had a lovely weekend actually. I went away for the first time since lockdown to a place called Muddyford in Dorset, which was obviously forecast to rain for the time that I was there. I just went on a Friday night and stayed over until the Sunday, but actually the weather was pretty good. I had my fingers crossed and that totally worked. So the rain stayed away. It was kind of mild actually, even made it into the swimming pool, and because the weather wasn't amazing, there was actually no one else in there, which was quite nice. But so that was quite fun and a bit of a break. It was a bit of a change of scenery, and I think kind of pressed the reset button a bit, which was nice. Came back this week, lots of different things kicking off left, right and centre, new projects, new clients, onboarding, and also managing current clients. And it made me think today, I was thinking, what is it that makes client relationships go from the very beginning, the honeymoon period, through to something which is, possibly a falling out or a misunderstanding, or, it's just something goes wrong. And I guess it's the same in personal relationships as well. But what is it that makes relationships go bad? So considering this a little bit, I was thinking that there's kind of three key things that those relationships tend to be bound upon, and that's communication, expectation, and deliverables. So if you break those down one by one, communication, if you're communicating one way or not communicating very well, i.e. the silent type, or someone that doesn't like to rock the boat too much, so therefore you don't say if something's wrong or if you're not happy with something, then that could possibly have an impact. The other person can't read your mind and therefore might not know that there's a problem. That then leads into frustration or communication becoming worse, and it can spiral out of control. Secondly, the expectations. So unless you've actually communicated what is going to happen, how you're going to manage those accounts, what on a weekly basis is going to occur, I've seen all too often that client expectations of what an agency is going to deliver are not matching up at all. And that can lead to challenges in themselves, and they'll come out in the wash at some point, but it tends to be further down the line. And that's because of the communication again. So people don't want to bring up the problem, or they think, oh, we'll give them a bit more of a chance and see what happens, but without telling them that there's an issue. And the third of those was deliverables. So you may have communicated quite clearly what's going to happen. You may have set the expectations of what that might look like and how that will be delivered. But if you're not delivering it how you've said, then you're possibly setting yourself up for a fall. And there's a number of reasons why that could happen. It could be that you've been too busy and you've miscalculated how much time something might take. It could be that you're having to redo work because the client's not happy with the standard of it, or they're not happy with what their expectation of what it was going to be is. And so there ends up being a number of different things. It could be that you've forgotten, or it's slipped off the radar, or you're going to do it tomorrow but you haven't communicated to the client that it's going to be done tomorrow. So there's all these different factors that can be really frustrating from both ends. From the client side, they're thinking, hold on, I'm paying this agency to help me with these problems and to help me to grow my business or to improve my marketing. And if that's not being seen to happen, that's when frustrations will occur. Equally, from the agency's point of view, they may think that they're doing what they've laid out, that they've sort of specified. They may have they may be completely unaware that there's actually a problem in place in the first place. unless the client's communicated to them that, because all they're hearing back is, oh yes, that's great, thank you, yeah, whatever. And so therefore it becomes something which then catches them out at the end of that process. So it's a difficult one, and I think not all relationships go down that route, but I would give 3 tips to try and help yourself, from whether your client side or whether your agency side, from falling into the trap of a relationship going bad. And that would be, firstly, be very clear, like more clear than you think. People always think they're being clear, and actually, if you read between the lines, it could be interpreted in a number of different ways. So go back to basics. Set out the rules from the very beginning, and if it's slightly muddy, then make it even clearer, crystal clear, so that anyone could understand it, so that an 11-year-old could understand it. Secondly would be to never assume, and the age-old saying of don't assume, it makes an ass of you and me. I hate that phrase, but everyone says it, and I think it's probably not that far from the truth in regards to the fact that if you do assume things, then you're not necessarily looking at what's there, you're looking at what's not there and trying to fill in the gaps yourself. And I can tell you now that there are 1,000,001 reasons why you could assume something and it will go wrong. And I've done it myself. You kind of fall into this false sense of security, thinking that you know what's happening when actually you don't. And that could be anything from, thinking that a client understands what a impression is. So you rattle off all this data and you're talking to them about how many people you've managed to reach within their target market, and they have no idea what an impression is. So they then make their own assumptions, and that ends up causing even more confusion. So try not to make assumptions and ask questions, clarify whether people are understanding what you're talking about. And then thirdly, I would say write it down, and maybe write it down and discuss. So kind of 2 levels of communication. If you have a conversation with someone, it may be great and a lot of good points may be raised, but they could easily get forgotten. The human brain can't retain everything all the time, and your memory will over time start to forget some of those details that you've talked about. So I always tend to make notes at the end of a call or a meeting, so that I've got all of those things that were raised to hand. I'll even make notes during those calls and things. But then I will shape it and I will write it and I will resend it to that person to make sure that we're both on the same page, that we're aligning our expectations, and that we both know what's going to happen next. And so by doing that, you're addressing the communication, you're managing the expectation, and you're also setting the tone for the deliverables. So that's been me this week. Why relationships go bad. A few tips hopefully to take away. And I look forward to speaking to you next week. Bye-bye.